What is a mystery? How does one define the very enigma that is the source of many literary and visual works in our cultural history? There are a few definitions, but Merriam-Webster.com lists one that defines a mystery as a piece of fiction dealing usually with the solution of a mysterious crime. I find that definition to be interesting because the more I thought about it, the harder it became to recall a mystery book, film, TV show, or video game that didn't revolve around a crime of some sort. Even the lighthearted Scooby-Doo mysteries of the 60s and 70s in some way involved criminal activity. But why is that? Humans have a tendency to be fascinated by the abnormal. We're dulled by the monotonous day-to-day of average life, and to remedy that, we actively seek out new things that we don't quite understand. By the law standards, killing, stealing, and the like all seem to hit those marks, and for good reasons. It's fascinating to me that the fictional Sherlock Holmes and the average viewer of the umpteenth season of NCIS share something in common. A desire to peer into the minds of people able to commit acts that would mark them morally accountable by the standards of the government. Crimes, however, are arbitrary in theory. That is, they don't mean the same to everybody. Any basic examination of worldwide laws and ethics will tell you this. We attach meaning to those undesired behaviors, creating for ourselves a bubble. And anything outside that is unknown or foreign, mysterious. Adventure, fantasy, horror, or sci-fi, a mystery can manifest itself almost anywhere, from a manor to a street corner. Marked by questions, answers, detectives, suspects, victims, and clues. The heart of the mystery is to make the unknown known. So where did it all begin? Historically, mystery, at least of the fictional kind, begins in literature. We first see its appearance in the 18th century as the Industrial Revolution sparked the need for police forces and detectives. Edgar Allan Poe was one of the first writers to cover the criminal subject matter in the thrilling and suspenseful way we would come to view mystery. Following him in the latter half of the century was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author to the Sherlock Holmes stories. Inspired by Poe's works, Doyle developed the character, further expanding on this new way of storytelling, a way to incorporate the reader into the plot by giving them clues and the ability to guess the outcome before our detective solves the case. In the early 20s and 30s, pulps began to gain in popularity, providing a cheap method of entertainment spanning across many genres. Crime solvers such as the Phantom Detective and Batman came out of this trend, bringing to us even more variances in the character. Famous mystery author Agatha Christie also made her presence known in this time through pieces like And Then There Were None. Inspired by the works of the time, mysteries started to move to the visual medium of film. Heralded as the first instance of mystery in the form, Arthur Marvin's Sherlock Holmes Baffled showcases a teleporting criminal getting away from our first depiction of the detective from Baker Street. Hardly resembling what we now know of the mystery genre, Marvin helped pave the way with his minute-long mutoscope production. From 1910 through the 20s, many films were made as adaptations of radio serials or drew heavily upon their inspirations. France started this cycle in 1908 with the film adaptation of a fictional dime novel detective, Nick Carter. Other fictional characters sought this treatment, such as in the 30s with Chinese-American detective Charlie Chan. Seeing the success of Fox and their line of adaptations with the Chan films, other studios started to copy the trend, creating motion pictures revolving around Asian detectives usually played by white actors. It was around this time that film studios were cranking detective films out on a consistent basis, and spilling into the 40s, this trend carried on into likely the most recognizable form of mystery today, film noir. Coined by the French film critic Nino Frank, the term means black or dark film. It was provocative, and at that time, many Americans saw it as an outlet from the difficult war times that plagued the first half of the decade. It was also during this time that the mystery started to be expanded on in ways that many had never seen before. Films like the Maltese Falcon took a more theoretical and imaginative approach, inspiring years of speculation about the mysterious artifact in the film. Others like Double Indemnity play with the traditional order of the mystery, as the entire film is a recounting and confession from a guilty Walter Neff, a fact that we learned in the first few minutes of the film.
Hold tight to that cheap cigar of yours, Keys. I killed Dietrichson. Me, Walter Neff.
Improvements to technology allowed for better sound, more diverse shooting locations, and the use of color within the work. Hitchcock, for example, used all of these throughout his mystery masterpieces in the 50s, such as Psycho and Rear Window. Take a look at this scene from Vertigo, where we're first introduced to the character of Madeline. Her green dress within the bright red room oppose each other so starkly, an absolute brilliant use of foreshadowing. Colors even begin to appear thematic as the film goes on, something that had hardly been seen before. New elements were being added for the audience participation aspect of trying to solve such crimes and murders, which is why, in the 60s and 70s, we begin to see a return to the noir styles of the 40s, labeled as Neo-Noir. The important aspect to keep in mind here, however, is that while film noir existed as a popular genre in the 40s, it was being built up by each subsequent release. Directors such as Fritz Lang and Billy Wilder were creating a genre using the tools of German expressionism and a wartime tone, while directors of neo-noir are building a film genre rooted in the past. They didn't build it up so much as they instead built upon it. This resurgence helped allow subgenres such as spy films and gangster films to gain or regain popularity with audiences, both of which are still popular today. After the 80s, mystery lost its form. No longer did we need a registered detective and a caution tape road. With neo-noir, suspense became a necessity of the modern mystery, and often in these modern films, mystery follows suspense in genres such as sci-fi, horror, thrillers, action, and more. So when is a mystery actually a mystery? First of all, genres are messy. No set of rules or a checklist can determine what a film is or isn't. We simply label them according to trends, themes, and tropes. They overlap and intertwine. When we look at a mystery film, however, lines become even more blurred because truly, mystery lacks a rigid skeleton. At the heart of every mystery, we have a question, whether it be who did it or why are we here. We always have a detective, or for a more non-restrictive term, a truth seeker. We have clues, victims, suspects, and we're always striving for an answer. Films such as Avatar or Batman vs. Superman seek to have good conquer evil, and while that isn't necessarily ignored in mysteries, it is secondary to a quest for truth. Visually, there is little that distinctly resembles a mystery film. Mysteries are often associated with chiaroscuro lighting, dark and morbid themes, and a hard-boiled hero. But these are threads common in noir, not mystery. And while they're not mutually exclusive, they aren't necessarily the same either. Perhaps puzzled looks, mansions, flashlights, question marks, and Jim Carrey and Batman Forever might connect us visually to the unknown quest we're on, but when looking for a recognizable aesthetic, it might serve us more to look at the technical aspects of the work, such as camera angles, music themes, and sound effects. A sound effect might let us know a clue is nearby, or the music might foreshadow that we're in danger of being caught. The suspense and tone of these actions that are common throughout mysteries is perfectly encapsulated through musical cues and sound effects. Camera angles and movements also play a major role in the aesthetic definition. Dolly shots like this one might spark our curiosity. Or when our character is perplexed, camera angles can become obscure or awkward to showcase a state of uncertainty. But if your defining elements are technical additions and story elements, can anything technically be a mystery? Well, given the correct writer, director, and/or editor, yes. I believe the genre has undergone a bit of a transformation since its origins. You can look at Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express to see a by-the-book's definition of a mystery, while over the past few decades, mystery now relies on other genres to exist at all. It's become a symbiotic storyline within the art form of film. In mediums such as literature, rows upon rows of bookshelves can be devoted to works that are primarily mystery, but take those same stories into the visual realm and they become secondary to the genre they use as a messenger. This is mostly in part to a change in the average consumer over the last half-century. Very rarely will we see mysteries given the primary focus of a work. The content is distinctive, but aesthetically, not evocative enough on its own to display a unique style in modern cinema. To put it simply, mystery is not governed by its visual elements that average moviegoers see. It can be delivered in any form given the proper elements are present. Rian Johnson's Brick is a perfect example of this, taking a noir story and creating a gritty narrative, all within the setting of a high school. No other genre exhibits this though. While westerns can take place in space as we see with works like Star Wars and Firefly, it also has a distinct and existent aesthetic of its own as well. Mystery was created around the time that human thought had evolved enough to start cognitively piecing together puzzles and reason. And we're seeing a similar development with modern cinema today, but for a different reason. The fact that a genre, once characterized by authors, fictional characters, and the actors and actresses who played them, can now be cloaked by a variety of settings, characters, and themes is telling of the time. In the age we live in, we have access to more information than ever before, yet does that mean it's all true? As mystery progresses into more and more film genres, we've come to a point in society where we shouldn't just take things at face value any longer. We're encouraged now, more than ever, to do our research and provide ourselves with clarity and answers. And this is reflected in the previous decade's iterations of mystery film. Cabin in the Woods incorporates mystery and horror. The recently released Arrival asks us questions about science fiction and humanity. Mystery's transition from an original is merely a mirror to the transformation society has drastically undergone in recent years. But unlike the transformation we see before mystery hits the scene, we're not dealing with logic so much as we're dealing with emotion. We start to see less of how and more of why. Just like generations before, our ancestors were starting to deal with concepts rather new to them. Research and the media it has inspired has driven us to look inward. We are now more in tune with ourselves than we've ever been before, so when somebody performs a crime such as murder, it's sad yet fascinating. How can these people feel this way? How can they act in such a manner? It's a market Hollywood knows appeals to our society today, which is why elements of mystery are showing up just about everywhere. Like children pulling apart toys to see how they work, we, as an audience, are curious. And thankfully, we have plenty of mysteries to keep us going. I think this plane's just doing circles.